The News for Jack's I-Team is taking a closer look at the history of the Champlain Towers South condominium. It was built in 1981, and according to the Miami Herald, it was the first project in the area after the development was paused in the 1970s. News for Jack's I-Team investigator Tarek Miner is taking a closer look.
Google Earth gives you some perspective of Champlain Towers South condominium in the town of Surfside, north of Miami Beach. Zooming in now from Collins Avenue, you can see it's right on the beach. This hotel is actually right next to it. This hotel that you see right here, it had to be evacuated because it was so close to the collapse. Now, if we switch to a view from the ocean, this is the portion of the building that you see there that collapsed. And if you look at it from the street view, you can see balconies outside of the units. All of this now reduced to debris and dust. Residents were likely sleeping in their beds when a portion of the Champlain Towers South condo collapsed, burying people and property underneath the rubble. News4Jax has learned that the Condominium Association was in contact with engineers and architects to complete its 40-year building recertification, required by Miami-Dade County to ensure that buildings that old are structurally safe.
There was work on the building being done to meet the 40-year standard. That is something that has been put in place not just for the county, but for all municipalities. And we have a strict building code since Hurricane Andrew for updates and improvements.
The owner is required to have the building inspected by an engineer or architect. The inspection is to determine the general structural condition of the building and the general condition of its electrical systems. A written recertification report must be prepared, certifying each building or structure is safe for continued occupancy. The building had 136 units. Of that number, 55 units collapsed. At the time, the building's roof was being redone. Miami-Dade Clerk of Court's records show a notice of commencement was filed on April the 5th for a re-roof of the entire condominium. The mayor of Surfside said roof work is constantly being done on buildings, and he didn't think it was a reason for the collapse. Governor DeSantis and Miami-Dade's mayor, however, said the focus right now is trying to locate survivors and relocating the families who escaped or who weren't home when everything they owned in their condominium was destroyed.
This is the incredible, unimaginable situation that none of us could have predicted.
A professor at Florida International University in Miami who studies the coastline told USA Today that the area where this condo is located was sinking at a rate of 2 millimeters a year back in the 1990s. He says that level of sinking can affect the structure, but it is still not certain what caused the building to collapse. Mary?
Right now, the focus is on the search for survivors, possible survivors, on those who are in the hospital, and also the family members who are waiting for word, any word about their loved ones. And that is what the local officials want us to focus on. I talked a little while ago to the mayor of Surfside, and he says that even though he has a background in construction, he can ask a lot of these questions. Right now, he wants that focus to be on the victims and the residents out there. Lauren?
Elliot, you can just imagine when hospitals get word of a situation like this, especially ones like the Ryder Trauma Center at Jackson Memorial Hospital, they brace themselves. They prepare possibly for an influx of patients that need immediate help, very emergent situations, to be able to triage everyone. As of right now, we're not hearing that many patients were taken to the hospitals, but we are hearing some incredible stories of hope this evening out of Jackson Memorial Hospital. CBS 4's Bobeth Yates has been there, and she's been talking to some friends and family members of a couple of the people, the survivors who were taken to Jackson Memorial Hospital. And Bobeth, this story that you've been sharing with us about a mother's bravery and strength in a time of crisis to save her child throughout all this, please tell our viewers exactly what we know about this mother and daughter in the hospital at JMH right now.
Yeah, well, they are the only two people that were transported to JMH, and as you mentioned, just a story of just miraculous, just courage and strength. In the midst of this disaster, that mother fell from that 9th floor to the 5th floor, breaking her pelvis, but somehow found the energy and the strength to not only pull herself from the rubble, but to lift her daughter up and pull her out too.
Pretty devastated, I guess.
Lisa Menin-Solano is among those gathered at Jackson Medical Center for the two people transported to the hospital after the tragic collapse. Angela Gonzalez and her 16-year-old daughter Devin were on the 9th floor when the building came down. They miraculously landed on the 5th floor, and somehow Angela was able to pick herself up and Devin and pull themselves out of the rubble.
It wasn't something that I thought would come down to this, I guess. But picking up the pieces, trying to figure out how to make this work, how to make this better than what it is. Even though it's a tragic scenario, I just want prayers and just the best for her and her family.
Edgar, Angela's husband and Devin's dad, is among the 99 people who are unaccounted for, and now the family is just hoping for another miracle.
Just hope for the best. Everybody just give prayers and to everybody else's families or any colleagues or friends that were in the incidents. I wish you prayers, thoughts out to all those families and all the tragedies, and I hope everybody goes well.
And you hear that wish of hoping everyone is actually better. Now you can see a group of the family members from Angela and Devin Gonzalez behind us. Many of them have been here more than 8 hours, just camped out outside the hospital. They have been just hoping and praying. At one point, created a prayer circle of everyone that was there, holding hands, bowing their heads, and just praying for yet another miracle coming out of this. So just a miraculous story of a mother's strength to save her daughter. And everyone I've spoken to about this say, you know, that's not abnormal for parents. When their daughter or their child is in a situation where it's an emergency, they find that strength somehow and make it happen. And it appears they did just that today. Now the two are in surgery and no updates have been given yet on their condition. Sending it back to you, Lauren.
Beth Yates live for us at Jackson Memorial Hospital. Thank you so much for sharing that incredible story of survival. Hopefully it is giving hope to others who are waiting for word on their loved ones.
Now to our other breaking story tonight, a building collapse in South Florida. This is video from the moment it happened overnight in Miami Beach. This is the aftermath. Concrete all over the place. Cars crushed. Search and rescue teams looking for any survivors and victims. Fox 35's Holly Bristow joins us live on the scene with the latest update. Holly.
Good evening. Well, there's definitely a feeling of uneasiness here in Surfside. Folks just not knowing exactly what's going on. So far, investigators are saying that one person is dead, 102 people have been accounted for, but there are still 99 people who are unaccounted for. And you need to take this into perspective as we zoom into the building. This partial collapse happened around 2 o'clock this morning when most people were sleeping. As you look up there on the 13th floor, you can see a set of bunk beds that you can only imagine was right smack in the middle of somebody's bedroom. It now looks like they're on a ledge, and as you look down a couple floors, you can see a blanket dangling.
Just havoc is all I could think of.
Barry Cohen and his wife say their lives turned upside down when they woke up to what they thought was a thunderstorm. What happened next is unthinkable.
My wife and I got whatever we could together and we went to leave our apartment. And we opened up the door from our apartment and there was a huge pile of rubble and dust.
The Champlain Tower condos in Surfside, a 12-story building, came crashing down without any warning in the middle of the night.
It was awful. Kids growing up screaming, women and children crying, and it was probably one of the worst experiences that I've ever witnessed in my life.
This morning, rescue crews pulled a 10-year-old boy out of the rubble. The status of his family, unknown.
This is the incredible, unimaginable situation that none of us could have predicted, but we have the right people on the job.
Now first responders are digging through the rubble, desperately searching for those left behind.
So we've got about 5 different state agencies involved right now that are assisting local county and city government. We will be here as long as we need to be.
The city has set up a reunification site where families are desperately looking for their unaccounted for loved ones.
I have friends that live there and they have no idea because they were in the South Tower. There's no news yet.
And you're just getting a little piece of the perspective from this angle of just how bad the destruction is here. We're pretty much seeing the top half of the building from this angle. This is the closest that the police here will allow us to get. What you can't see from here is about 2.5 stories of rubble just piled up next to the building. That debris field at least 100 feet wide in every direction. And that is where rescuers are desperately searching for any survivors. The mayor out here said that they will not stop searching until each person is accounted for. And as you can imagine, there is absolutely no timeline on this, but time is certainly of the essence. For now, reporting live in Surfside, Miami Beach, Holly Bristow, Fox 35 News.
Holly, thank you. Governor DeSantis toured the site of the collapse this morning.
The governor spent the morning walking around the site. The Red Cross is helping families who were displaced by the collapse. And today, DeSantis praised first responders who rushed to the scene.
They were on that scene before we knew whether there'd be more collapse. We didn't know whether the building had any structural integrity, and they were shepherding people to safety. And they absolutely saved people's lives. And so we really appreciate all that they have done and that they're continuing to do.
There are still dozens of people unaccounted for, and the city of Miami has set up a family reunification center to help. Search and rescue crews are sifting through the rubble of that building. Firefighters in Seminole County know the crews on the ground in Miami have a tough job. About 30 of them are highly trained for specialized rescues just like this one.
The type of training we do for an emergency like this would be structural collapse training, all kinds of specialized rescue. We have concrete saws and drills. We also have drones and cameras we can see people with that are buried under rubble.
We will continue to stay on this breaking story as our crews continue to search for the victims.